What's up, everyone? Steven from theemotionmachine.com here. Gonna try something a little bit different. Gonna record a video because A, I haven't recorded a video in a really long time, and B, I've been writing a lot within the last few weeks, and it's tiring, and I want to try something different. So I'm just gonna record a video. It's gonna be a little bit of a stream of consciousness thing because I don't have anything really prepared to talk about, but I have some general idea of the things I want to talk about, and they're things that have really been on my mind for a really long time now. And uh, basically, what's always interested me about psychology and my own experience of studying psychology and studying the human mind is that there are limitations to psychology as it's defined today. And I'm defining psychology as the scientific study of the mind, so knowledge about the mind determined using the scientific method. And I think part of the problem with coming up with a complete science of the mind is using the scientific method. And let me get it out of the way right away. I'm a huge advocate for science, and I'm not against science, and I don't want to get rid of science. I just think that there are limitations to it, and I think that maybe science needs to evolve a little bit in order to have a complete science of the mind. And part of the reasons for this is that a lot of science today, there's an overemphasis on outside observation and measurement and statistical analysis and replication and falsifiability. And those are the rules that make something good science. And I think in many ways having that rigor is really good. And certainly using the scientific method, we've discovered truths about the human mind that we couldn't have discovered without using this method. But at the same time, I think because science is so rigorous, which is a good thing, it's also a bad thing because it denies a certain amount of empiricism, a certain amount of evidence that we can't measure, that we can't observe outside ourselves, and that we can't replicate, and we can't falsify, and we can't do any of those things. And that's why this evidence is usually looked over or underemphasized in psychology. And the type of evidence I'm really talking about is qualitative research, and in particular introspection, the study of subjective experience, a study of meaning, and study of art and culture, and having conversations with people. I think these are all ways we can actually understand more about the human mind by having this sort of qualitative research where we really focus in on one particular mind and we try to ask them questions and discover their thoughts and beliefs and discover what values and interests drive their behavior, and the full context of the individual and their habits of living and their environment and their genes also, and their health and their past history, and all these factors that go into making a human mind. Having the scientific method alone doesn't seem to give us the full picture, and I guess part of this is influenced, part of my viewpoint is influenced by William James, an early psychologist in late 19th century, I think, and he advocated for something he called radical empiricism, which put more of an emphasis on introspection and subjective experience, and the validity of using those methods to study the human mind and to give us a full picture of a mind. And a lot of this also is being now researched by Alan Wallace at the Institute for Consciousness Studies, and he does a lot of neuroscience stuff, but he mixes that with introspection and a lot of qualitative research. And that's the kind of research that I'm excited about because it uses the scientific method, but it also acknowledges the importance of introspection, the importance of these other methods of studying the mind, these other tools of observing the mind like introspection. And I think a lot of this is also influenced by Buddhism, and certainly there's tools that Buddhism has that help us study the mind through introspection, and I think those tools are well, they're really not acknowledged at all in science. But I think that we can start integrating them, and I think that we can start building upon science and taking into account a wider range of empirical evidence, and I think that we can try to develop a clearer picture of the human mind. But even then, I have some doubts about the limitations of studying another human mind. And the way I see it is, you can follow someone around all day, you can watch all their behaviors, you can have numerous conversations with them about their thoughts, their beliefs, their attitudes, their values, their interests, their past experiences. And even then, even if you have all this information, you still don't know exactly what it's like to be that person. You're still not completely um, um, understanding of their subjective experiences, the way they experience the world, and so there's limitations to that might be beyond just science. They might be just limitations of trying to study any mind. And some of this is influenced by Thomas Nagel's essay, What's It Like to Be a Bat? And in that essay, he basically talks about how he uses bats as an example of the limitations of trying to understand another human mind. And the reason a bat is such a good example is because their sensory system is so much different than ours. They use echolocation to see. They fly around at night. They eat bugs. It's a very different way of living. And even though we understand all these things about bats, do we really know what it's like to be one? And is that a form of empiricism that maybe we don't have access to right now? So I think in some ways we can understand other human minds, through empathy and through taking other people's perspective and imagining ourselves in their shoes. But even then, there's limitations. There's limitations there's limitations to what I think Freud would call transference, which is during the relationship between the therapist and the client, they go through a period where of transference, where it's really empathy, and he's just understanding the other person's viewpoint through conversation and asking questions and psychoanalysis. But even then, I don't think there's any such thing as a complete transference. I don't think there's any such thing as being able to fully understand another mind. So these are limitations to psychology, both in the realm of in the realm of science, and I think in the realm of everyday experience. There's just limitations to how much we can actually understand another person and another mind. And so I guess maybe I don't believe that there can never be a complete science of the mind, because there's just too many factors and there's just too many differences, and we don't have the cognitive capacity to completely understand every individual human mind. Because when we say, the scientific study of the mind, we're not really talking about one thing. We're talking about 6 billion things. We're talking about 6 billion other minds that there are to understand. And I think no one scientific study can really be generalized to all minds. And there's always exceptions. There's always differences. And to have a complete science of the mind, I think we would need to be able to understand those differences, and I'm not sure we're capable of it. But that doesn't mean we should not try. It doesn't mean we should stop using the scientific method. It doesn't mean we should stop using introspection, or that we should stop being empathetic to others. It's just something to think about. It's just a limitation that might always exist. So think about that. I don't know. Just some food for thought. I'll definitely be talking about this and elaborating more on it in the future. So share your thoughts.